I have no plan for this, but I guess, you know, I'm going to call it the same thing as my blog, which is basically the backstory. So I'm going to try and do a series of called Being a Creator is More Than You Think It Is. And the idea is that I'm going to just interview people who are just doing things differently and experimenting with technology, building like creator careers differently. I guess a bit like me, and just speaking to other people that are doing it, how they're doing it. And because we made the music video, you made the music video for the song, I thought it would be a really cool place to start because I know you've got a lot of opinions on um, on AI,
I've
particularly.
never had an opinion before. I don't know what you're talking about.
um, I've had so for those who don't know, I had a song. Daniel, whose artist name is Vivid Fever Dreams, who will do a proper intro in a minute, worked on a video for me, and it has had a lot of people DMing me, right? Like not a lot of people sharing it, but a lot of people DMing me with different views and opinions and ideas about what I do. But to start with, I thought one of the funny things was when I was actually writing, like sharing posts and doing all that stuff, is that I was trying to figure out how to talk about you. Like how do I introduce you as an artist? Like, so it'd be cool to hear just like you introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about how you describe yourself as an artist these days, or musician, depending on like what that
Yeah.
means, right? Like,
Yeah. I'm Vivid Fever Dreams. I am based out of Austin, Texas. I do a lot of production work with like making dubstep and wubs, but I've had many different phases of genre, just trying to kind of find my niche. And recently I've been experimenting with AI tools and how I can incorporate visuals and visual storytelling into the music I'm making.
is you were doing visual stuff before getting into AI, or has that been like the thing that's really
I was doing like glitch visuals before, but like nothing really sophisticated in term because like some people who are into kind of like that analog glitch scene, they'll have like tons of just old school custom made gear uh that they use, and they kind of will like record it being displayed on like an old CRT TV, and they go very hard. I wasn't doing it to that extent. I kind of was just using a few different applications to kind of make some trippy glitchy stuff. And when the AI visual tools started coming out, it was just kind of like a huge upgrade to what I was able to do in terms of just kind of like making trippy looking stuff on a budget. And then from there, kind of just grew into, well, what else, like what other types of visuals can I make? And kind of just exploring like how far you can push them.
I think there's something really interesting in that. Like I talk a lot, I've started to talk a lot more recently about how when I was coming up, had to learn to use a sampler and I had to save up to buy it and I got it and I had to read the manual to use it. There was no like YouTube tutorials and and then I had to every step that I made as a producer was quite like in a way it was quite like linear. It was like the only option, but it was also the kind of it was the always the tools that were the best for like experimenting. And hearing you coming from that like glitch perspective is interesting to me because you were thinking of it from a perspective of like what tools can I use to like mess with visuals, right? Like that's kind of or
Yeah.
make things that are like interesting visually. While some people with AI are coming from a different perspective in terms of like I guess like a just different perspective, right? What can I use AI to save me time, or how can I use AI to fake this thing? But like I think there's like a kind of like subversive humor to like a lot of the stuff you do. And hearing you talk about that, yeah, that background of kind of messing with stuff using other machines before AI is quite interesting to me. Um,
Yeah,
what's
I mean, it kind
interesting
of
to
was
you?
like a necessity thing where, it just costs a lot of money to do cover art and like um, any type of canvas visual on Spotify. And it just you do the math very quickly and you're like, this is not a sustainable thing. I can afford to be throwing down hundreds of dollars every time I'm releasing a track. Um, and you have to just figure out a way to do it on your own. And some people take the way of where they kind of just goes into, just super, I'm taking photos on my phone, kind of making them like editing them a little bit in the Photoshop or something, and then going from there. But uh, obviously, based on the name, I like to kind of, those like out there types of visuals into those. So it kind of was just the natural road to go down.
What is I don't want to open. I guess I just want to open the box really early on, like, me and you have talked quite a lot with you. I guess like your like openness towards like these tools and other people's um fear, fear of them, or uncomfortableness. Maybe is like a more like
Yeah.
fair way to put it. Um, I don't have a solid question in there, but I guess like it'd be
I
cool
mean,
to
I
hear
think I
you. I
get where
mean, I
you're,
know that
yeah.
for you personally, like as an artist with identity, like your identity, your sound, there's quite like a strong meshing, right? Like between like the using of the tools and what you do as a musician. Um, I guess like what do you see as like a future for other artists? Like are they going to be following your path?
Um, I mean, I think what's great about it is, you don't have to use it if you don't like it. You like there's still people who kind of do everything the very old school way and they'll go into a studio with like other studio musicians and they'll lay down tracks and it's all very, analog and uh it's been tried and true method of recording and producing music for a long time. And I think that will continue to be a thing people engage in. But I'm kind of just of the perspective that like you can't be ignoring what's happening because it's happening. So why not play around with it and see what happens? And obviously you'll find things about it you like and you don't like, and then just don't do the things you don't like. Um, it's like I see a lot of people like complaining about like, oh, there's a lot of slop content and and I hate the slop content too. I think it's annoying. It's just there to like, make your feeds all clogged up with like just trash people spend no time on making and churning them out. So I mean, make stuff that isn't trash. Like make stuff that you think is interesting and compelling. But I do think that's kind of like a greater problem with like the actual algorithm systems, and there needs to be like a rethinking of how those work, and that's going to come to a head very soon, where it's like people just will stop using the platforms if it's just full of garbage. um, so hopefully they find a better way, and I think YouTube is they rolled out a system where you can kind of like give a creator or like a video like hype points, and it like will boost it in the algorithm. And I think that's like a very cool way of like signaling, like help, like having like your audience kind of like signaling that they like are supporting a video and uh, have that like directly benefit smaller creators. So I think like different systems like that are probably going to be the way forward, just in terms of like getting your content in front of new people.
It's interesting because I hadn't thought about it. It's almost like tipping, but like algorithm tipping, right? So like you
Yeah,
like like human tipping, but what you're basically doing is almost like algorithm credits to push them. So I think that's an interesting system. I haven't heard like loads of people doing it, but I guess then that
they're
I
still
guess
rolling it out, but it's it looks promising. Like it's like, hey, at least they're trying something different. They like understand there's a problem and they're like trying to switch it up and have something that is more like kind of how Reddit used to be, where when it was like in pure Reddit mode, where like it would be like all in the upvotes and downvotes. Um, I feel like something like bringing that more like just human influence to this like algorithm is probably going to be at least maybe a pathway to an answer.
how how has using AI like make you think differently about like yourself as a creator? I feel like you're on a similar journey to me where like maybe there isn't the right language or exploring different languages from being like an electronic music artist or a producer. Um, do you see your future being like more than that, or do you see yourself as more than that already, or you still see yourself as a producer that just uses some tools to make visuals?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I definitely have kind of broadened my view of like what I want to do in terms of like having visuals and like how much of a storytelling, again, instead of like just, oh, this looks pretty, like actually having like some type of narrative elements to what I'm doing. Even though I still, it's still fun to just make stuff that looks cool. But I've definitely been kind of like seeing how I can incorporate narrative elements more into songs and seeing if that resonates with people. It is just like a constant game of like trying, seeing what worked and what didn't work, and then trying again. Um, but yeah, did that answer?
Yeah, yeah. I guess I was leaning a little bit towards as well, like when you speak to, I found myself writing like direct musician, artist, director,
Oh
AI
yeah, like
artist, like I guess like do you see yourself doing more of this stuff for other people rather than just building out your own world?
I'm. It kind of is like a hey, if people want to collaborate on stuff and the project is cool and I'm about it, I'm very open to doing that type of thing. Uh, but I definitely still like when I'm working on my own stuff, I'm kind of just like making the music and then the visuals will come uh after it.
One
But
of the things that I always find interesting when someone like you talks about AI tools kind of making, you talked about like Canva. I guess you're talking more about money, but there is a process element too where it's like, we don't have to go out, people will say stuff like you don't have to go out and have an expensive camera and you can make these things happen. But from working with you, I know that the process is still really complicated, right? Like it's not an easy process. I think like producers often have quite like a natural feel for, we're used to having to learn different programs, different plugins, different interfaces, different synths, like working things out. It'd be cool to hear a bit more about your process because I know from working together, you're doing, using one platform for something, using one platform for something else. Often you're testing them out to see which works best.
yeah, I mean, it's I guess like a big misconception a lot of people have is like, oh, you're just typing a prompt in and then getting a video at the end of it. But um, it really, and you can do that. There are platforms where you can just like type a prompt in and then get a completed video on the other side. But that's not fun. So I don't do that. And I feel like being like the great thing about AI is like you can choose how much of yourself you want to put into the project, like how much you can like down to if like you're making a photo, like you can do all the compositional elements, all the color elements, um and you can get like really granular with how much control you want to have over it. And it kind of is nice to I feel like art will like when artists are working on this type of stuff, like using these tools, I feel like even if they're using these tools where it's like, yeah, there is like a way I could just click a button and do it. But I mean, the whole point of like making stuff is having your input in it at some point. So uh I feel like they still, even though like these tools are being used, like I still feel like artists who are actually trying to make cool things are still going to be like pouring themselves into the work to get their vision across.
What do you have like do you have a process when you're starting a piece of work? Like is your process that first I need to work out which platform I'm going to use for what, or
Mm.
do you like mood board stuff out using like testing images and like have you got a kind of any
It
sort of
really, it definitely like varies project to project, but like in terms of uh like what we were doing, like we had a
yeah.
strong concept going into the video, so that was very helpful. Like when you once you have like a concept down, you can kind of like see what path you need to take to get to the end. It's like a bunch of puzzles you have to kind of figure out because some models will do certain motions better than others. Um, we had to make like a, you know, clone of you. Uh, so training, like some places, there's like different models for training. Um, some platforms are more conservative with what they like. There was the one shot of you like lifting weights at the gym. Like there were some platforms that were just like, nope, you cannot run this into a video because there's like a shirtless guy lifting weights in it. So you kind of have to work around that. It's a lot of problem solving, and that kind of does influence a lot of like when I have to switch. I really just try to use like the highest quality platform when possible, but because of like censorship issues, I do end up having to jump around a lot. And sometimes like a model will be really good and then it's just like it can't do the motion no matter how many times you try to like re-prompt it and reword it, and then you just gotta see if you can get the motion on a different platform.
With the censorship stuff, I know I found it weird that you were telling me that, but then out of one, we got some pretty like raw stuff out of a couple of them, and actually some of them we didn't use, right? Which is a whole nother conversation. But those, we had a bank robbing scene where like in the background it looked potentially like a gunshot and someone fell. But I'm presuming you didn't prompt that part of it, right? The AI just
I
came up.
did it. I didn't. I didn't even. I did not even prompt the gunshot going off. It just kind of had that happening in the. And maybe you can play like put the clip on an overlay here so they can see it since it's like a it got cut from the video. But yeah, like Midjourney wasn't letting me run that at all because there was just a gun in it. Sometimes you can get around stuff by saying it's a movie prop, like a prop gun with a uh and that's normally what I do to make sure things work is I'll like frame it in terms of like VFX and a movie set. Um so that will work a lot of the time, but models like Midjourney have image like they're like inspecting the image you give it, and if it sees something it doesn't like, it will just like refuse,
Mm.
um, which is annoying. But yeah, they all just have kind of like different systems for how they do the moderation, which leads to like, oh, you can get some crazy things out of some platforms uh, when you're not even expecting it. It really just kind of depends.
You're quite like a fan of some of the imperfections, right? I guess you probably have like a good feel for where things are going compared to a lot of us in terms of like you're quite aware of what's capable and maybe a bit more aware of what's coming. Do they play a part in your work? Because I know like I had some people be like some people who were like almost like their reaction was like they were expecting it to be better. Like, oh, it could that one didn't look like as much like you as it could have.
Yeah, I
And I
mean
was like, it's
it's
not like perfect, right? Like that's the point, right? There's kind of like nuances to the levels of like satire in it.
and that's like one of the problems I guess with like doing a photorealistic. It's really hard to do a photorealistic style because people have this expectation that like the photorealistic style needs to be like as close to reality as possible. So when you're doing things to kind of like make it more surreal and weird, they just have like a not great reaction to it because they're like, oh, this isn't like super uh movie level quality. But I mean, the it will get there to where you can do that type of stuff. But honestly, I just don't really care that much because I think it looks cool, that like trippiness of it, where it's kind of like all artifacting and getting weird in some places, like doing some strange like distortions and warping. Um, and yeah, I just don't really mind it that much. And it's kind of just like uh timestamps it to where we're at currently, like in 2 months. I mean, if I made the video today I could probably make it cleaner than I did like 2 weeks ago, which is just how fast the tech is improving. Like there's been several new image models that have just come out over the past 2 weeks that really make editing images a lot easier and a lot better looking than ChatGPT did when I was making those like hand scenes with the phone. So I mean, it's like I probably could already make like a better version of it if I tried. But then if you're thinking about it that way, you're not going to make anything. So you just can't think about it like that.
You've got to use what available when you're doing what you're doing. So you're using chat, you were generating images of the hand holding the phone in a scene and then using something else to add
I was
the
using it. I was using so like to make um. Well, ChatGPT was really good at doing like their image model is really good at doing like POV shots. So like when I was like, oh, a hand holding out the phone, like a phone with a blank screen. It was really good at doing that, and then like I was really able to like customize the environment uh in ChatGPT because it is very smart at like understanding what you want in plain English and then putting that into visual form. But like in the shots of like the actual short form content that we were like kind of riffing off of, those were done in a combination of like Mid Journey and Free Pix, which the model it was running was Flux. And those just it just is a ChatGPT like the there's something about the images I don't love about ChatGPT's image model, so I try to like avoid using it whenever possible. But there is just some situations where like it will just understand you so much better than Flux or Midjourney does that you kind of have to use it. But that's obviously going to change and uh, probably will not like that won't even be a conversation in like by the end of the year.
do you find like in your personal work that using a lot of these tools is helping you be present on social media in a different way? Like we kind of the video plays a lot on like virality, right? Like and in the actual end product was that we made something that when I really got into the details didn't really suit the algorithm, right? Like it was a long journey, it was slower than slop, right? Like in terms of like the progression between like sections and things. And I think it raised some like interesting things in my mind about weirdly like, the video itself going viral wasn't the end product, right? It was making commentary on that whole system, especially for musicians. And I think like one of the things that maybe some musicians are hopeful for is that if they're not comfortable finding their lane on social media, that maybe like creating visuals can. And I know that you do like a lot of really interesting visual work. I don't know what's been the experience for you in terms of like sharing that work with the world. Like, have you found?
Yeah, I mean it's to be honest, like sharing I've seen some accounts that like will really pop off just sharing like very they kind of have found a lane of like a certain aesthetic and they'll just be like posting just that aesthetic in like different contexts. And I really just can't do that because it's so you can do you have access to every single type of visual style that you can imagine. And I just can't uh deal with that repetition of like restraining myself into something so niche, which I feel like is not really good for algorithmic results. Um,
I relate
and
to that.
I also don't really, I kind of am over like this where like a trend will pop off where there was like one where animals are jumping on trampolines and everyone was posting like videos of animals. It's just like a waste of time in my opinion. I feel like you're not getting fans off of doing that type of stuff. You're just getting like, some quick dopamine hits from a lot of uh having like an algorithmic boost one time and how sustainable is that? Uh I just try not to engage in that. I'm very over like this limitation of where like the video needs to be like 2 minutes long and I kind of just make it as long as it needs to be. Um and whatever the algorithm does, it does.
Fair enough. For like a career moving forward, I mean, I personally find it quite hard to operate freely in like the current models because, like you say, consistency of style is often like a thing that people follow accounts for, or maybe, maybe it's not what people follow accounts for, but maybe it's what the algorithm can understand how to serve it to people.
Oh
There's a lot
yeah,
of
like how to
theories behind
retarget
that.
people or how to like, oh, it knows like this type of person likes the visuals that are going on here. And the larger of a data set you have of people reacting to this certain aesthetic, it will like, keep expanding outwards. and get better at like that initial. It's like that initial targeting stage. It will get like really good at giving it to like the first 100 people, and those 100 people will react to it, which will kind of allow it to grow better than when it's just serving it up to like randoms. And yeah, it's definitely very limiting. But I mean, I'm trying to like actually grow like an audience of people who are following because they like dope stuff. So I try to just give them dope stuff.
Do you share any of like your process? I mean, I think like your work is really interesting because you're like asking a lot of questions that a lot of artists are afraid to ask, right? In terms of the way you experiment with new stuff, and myself included, there is a lot of us that have like an image of themselves in their mind, and they find it hard to break free from that. I mean, you know, there's a different there's some kind of different mindset involved whereby like using a new sound or a new synth or a new production style still feels safer to a lot of musicians. You know, I don't know, going like radio, even like in it, like go Radiohead going from the Bends to OK Computer, or there's so many examples of that, like Kanye going from soul samples to 808s and heartbreaks, and there's probably much more contemporary versions of that than
Yeah.
my like old ones. But um yeah, there's something weird about the visual thing, right? I don't know whether you like what's your experience of speaking to other artists about like experimenting with these tools? Is it just because sound is a safer medium for them and visual stuff is kind of stepping into like a different medium?
Uh, I think the main thing is there's just so much backlash still from doing it. I mean, that's the main pushback I get from like trying to work with other artists on their visuals is just like some will tell me like they don't care and they're down to do it, but they're scared of like receiving the negative backlash that people have toward it at the time. But I mean, fuck them. It's kind of just like, hey, the technology's here. It's not going away. You have to kind of accept reality as it is and use it in a way that you think is cool. Um, and if you're scared about I really don't think like artists are scared of experimenting in visual mediums because they do all the time. It's just this medium specifically, and I think it even applies to sound format where they're not very open about like using audio based tools either. It's really the technology format is kind of the barrier still, and it's just from that conception of like, oh, it's taking the humanity out of it. Uh, and they are scared of, I guess, like falling into that. Like it's like a older person who has they've been running like their own studio and they're getting mad at like people for recording at their houses
Uh-huh.
on their computers because they're like, oh, that's you're not like a real producer. You use like you don't know how to use like this weird mixing board that I spent $15,000 on. Um, it's just like a term people like they people put themselves in boxes. And I think that's kind of what's happening here.
Before we wrap things up, I guess it'd be nice to end on some final thoughts of some kind. One of the questions would be, I guess, like, was there like a favorite moment in the video that we did together that or like, enjoyable part of that process of working with someone else rather than just doing your own stuff, or unenjoyable? That's okay too.
uh I mean, I had a lot of fun with doing the like vignettes, trying to see like how outrageous I could make them. Um, so that was probably the funnest part of the video. The least fun part was trying to get that scrolling animation. That was hell every time I did it. Because it just was like, oh, how do I scroll? It's like scrolling like this. It's like not touching the screen. There was just a lot of variation that was happening with that, and that was like just but that's like also again just the current limitation of it that will eventually go away. Like a lot of headaches I currently have with the flow are due to like the current limitations of the technology. So I'm very optimistic that the whole thing will be a lot more just you're making stuff and then moving on in term versus having to troubleshoot. That's the most time consuming process is just the troubleshooting.
Cool. thanks for all your work on the video and thanks for the
Yeah, I'm glad
conversation.
you enjoyed it.
Where can people find you? Where's the best place to check out your work?
It's Vivid Fever Dreams on uh every platform. All my videos are on YouTube. The music's on Apple Music and Spotify, and uh SoundCloud is also where I have like a lot of remixes and stuff that aren't on the major streaming platforms. So I would check there. And yeah, all my stuff is available to download for free.
Cool. That's interesting. What was any parting like thoughts to other artists that because a lot of people that will probably be like watching this are other producers and other creators. Is there any like advice or like thoughts you would like to say to other creators who maybe haven't played with these tools yet or are like anxious about playing with these tools?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every artist, when they realize what AI is going to become, has like a little existential crisis where they're kind of like, oh, damn, I just spent like 10 years learning how to produce music. And now this thing is going to come here and be able to like make songs like out of a prompt or whatever. And you kind of go through like a phase where you're just like really negative and dejected. But I mean, you can either be a dude, like I said earlier, you have to like it's reality that it's here. Even if we got everyone to ban it, like we were like, hey, let's ban this and put it. You just can't put it back in the box because there's other countries making it. The models would still get out online where people can run them on local software. Um, and you just can't like the cat's out of the bag. So you can either be like all sad and pouty about it, or you can kind of see it as a sandbox for you to play around in and do a lot of things that you previously were uh, unable to, either given like time constraints or money constraints. And I think that's cool that like you now have the ability to like make high budget quality music videos that are engaging, and it really is like you'll get out of it what you put into it. If you're trying to like just like, oh, let me get like like what people are doing where they're like flooding Spotify with like AI songs. It's like you're not really going to get much out of it using it that way, and artistically wise. But if you actually like really dig in and experiment and play around and resample them, like audio and visuals, you can get like some really interesting results that I think are compelling.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, Daniel.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Cool.